Okay. We'll go ahead and get started and call to order the Tippecanoe County Area Plan Commission meeting for June 18th, 2024. And first on the agenda is the roll call.
Jackson Bogan. Larry Leverins.
Here.
Gary Schroeder.
Here.
Vicki Pearl.
Here.
Jerry Reynolds. Greg Jones. Bob Metzger. Diana Looper.
Here.
Carla Snodgrass. Rabita Rajkarnikar. Tom Murtaugh.
Present.
Steve Snyder.
Present.
Tracy Brown.
Present.
Jason Demkowski.
Present.
Lisa Dullum.
Here.
Kathy Parker.
Here.
Jody Hamilton.
Here.
Quorum present.
Very good. Thank you. Next is briefing session.
All right, all cases are ready to be heard except for Z2932 BET LLC. We still have some check-in paperwork that's needed. So if anyone's here representing that case, please bring your information forward.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ryan. Next is approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the May 15th, 2024 public hearing as submitted.
I second.
Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. New business.
I move to hear and vote on Resolution PD 2408.
I second.
All right. The Stonehenge Phase 4 plan development is kind of the last stage in a project that's started many years ago. And the construction plans were approved and recorded after the rezone, which took place in June of 2020. The proposal is for a 107-lot single-family detached residential subdivision, including 6 outlots, all on private streets. Again, the construction plans were approved and recorded. As you can see, the roadways are largely in place, certainly for the section that we are dealing with. So the developer is elected to begin, I believe it's 57 lots total for home sites for this Part 1 of the final plat. So they're free to cut up the plat of however many ways they'd like for their own purposes. And so what you'll see here on the plan is the darker black color is the part being platted. And then the kind of ghosted out color is what remains. So they'll have rights to plat that next section in part or in total later, and they still have many more years to go before this PD would expire. So no doubt that'll be coming down the road soon. But it is all private streets, and the outlots largely contain the amenity spaces and the stormwater management. We did an inspection of the site, and the mulch trails and some of those amenities are already in place. The landscaping is in place. There is some landscaping remaining to be planted, which would come normally after home construction. So that's the bonding being requested, and that bond has already been accepted. So we are recommending approval of this final plat portion, Part 1. Be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you. Petitioner, the representative, have a presentation. Anybody here representing Heron Bay Stonehenge? Procedure, I assume we can approve that without comment on this particular issue? Okay. So any questions or comments from the audience? Comments from the commission? Hearing none, you have a yellow ballot.
We have a unanimous ballot for approval.
Thank you, Ryan. We're going to enter our public hearing portion of the meeting. We have a couple statements to read. For those of you unfamiliar with our procedures, the Commission would like for you to know the following. When we hear requests to subdivide land, we are only concerned as to whether the actual drawings showing the subdivision into lots meets the technical requirements of our ordinance. The question of appropriateness has already been determined. Anyone wishing to make a comment or provide us with information regarding subdivision petition will be given an opportunity to do so. When hearing a request for a change in zoning, we are trying to determine if the new zone being requested and the uses allowed in that zone are appropriate to that property and supported by the comprehensive plan. With each case being heard, our staff will present its report. Then the person requesting the rezone will be given an opportunity to speak. Following that, those wishing to speak in favor of the rezone will be recognized, and those who wish to oppose it will have a turn. This will be your only time to speak. The person requesting the action will be allowed a rebuttal. Plan Commission members will then ask questions and finally vote. Please limit your statements to no more than 5 minutes. We ask that you not repeat what others before you have already said. We are a 17-member body, and a majority of 17 is 9. Regardless of how many commissioners are actually present, at least 9 votes in favor or 9 votes against are required for an action to be official. If fewer than 9 of us agree to either approve or disapprove an action, the case must be heard again next month. Our vote on a request to subdivide is final. Our vote on a request to rezone serves as a recommendation to the appropriate city council, town council, or county commissioners who must ultimately decide on changes in zoning. When addressing the commission, please state your name and address for the record. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. If you need to make a call, please step outside of the room before making your call. All exhibits presented to the commission become property of the commission, and after you speak, we have a sign-in sheet over on the desk if you'd please sign. Larry.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and to become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Plan Commission, the application and all documents filed therewith, the staff report and recommendation on the applications to be heard this evening, and responses from the checkpoint agencies.
I second.
So a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Next, we have an ordinance amendment.
I move to hear and vote on UZO Amendment Number 112A and 112B.
I second.
All right. The staff report has a lot of the detailed history here, which I'm not really going to go into fully. It's if there's questions about it or so forth, we can review that in turn. But what you have before you are, I guess, potentially 3 amendments. I can tell you that this originally was advertised as a fairly open-ended amendment. And so we have the ability, without having to re-advertise and hear this again next month, to parse this by jurisdiction or not. And so I think what went into the packet was A and B, A being a restriction only within the corporate limits of West Lafayette, and then B was only within the city of Lafayette. So, and then the C, I believe, is also an alternative, which essentially negates the need for B. And so it's said that this prohibition would be in all localities except within West Lafayette, because West Lafayette already has theirs. And so, but let's go ahead and get into the details. So we have 3 pathways for transient guest accommodations. The sort of the lightest one is the transient guest room. The definition's there. The owner is on site, present. Essentially, they're renting rooms out of their home. So they're all still living in common. It's just there's a rental situation there that is less than a 30-day type of situation. As you know, the transient guest phrase is essentially a rental environment that is less than 30 days. So renting month to month or greater is unregulated. That's up to the owner to set the terms of a lease that they're comfortable with. But if it falls less than 30 days, then you fall into this transient guest situation. The transient guest rental is where the owner essentially, it's still an owner-occupied environment, but the owner is away for a period of time that allows them to rent in a short-term capacity no more than 60 days that unit. So they're on a sabbatical, it's like a sabbatical type rental situation. And the first two are permitted pretty much in every zone, I believe, so by right. So there's no special permission needed, you could just do it. So the guest house is where the owner is not there. They own the property, they don't live there, and they're renting the entire facility less than 30 days. So presently, that specific use is permitted in 13 zones in our zoning ordinance, either by right or by special exception. This proposal, UZO 112, this amendment, would reduce that by 4. So the R1 zones are the ones at issue, but if moving forward, that would still leave 9 other zones where the transient guest house use could be permitted. And that is permitted by right. It's already permitted by right, but if this were to pass in West Lafayette, for example, it would still be permitted in the R3, R3U, R3W, R4W, MRU, CB, CBW zones by right. And then in the duplex zones, R2 and R2U, that is permitted by special exception. So none of that's going to change. So I do want to kind of make that distinction that this isn't a community ban. This is a restriction in 4 zones only. So there will continue to be 9 zones that will allow this use, which provides the pathway for those that want to operate. So that, I think, is it in a nutshell. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan. Anyone from the audience wish to speak to this ordinance amendment?
Hi, my name is Monica Casanova. My address is 1007 North 9th Street, and I support this restriction for transient guest houses. I believe that affordable housing has largely been reduced in our community, and I see that on a day-to-day basis as a township trustee. So I want to lend my voice in support of this restriction. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to this?
Hello, my name is Brantley McCord. I live at 221 West Wood Street. I'm also in favor of this restriction, seeing as I am a longtime student at Purdue University. I'm someone who greatly values long-term housing and understand that it is almost impossible to come by, that incoming students need that security. They need to be able to keep that, it's one of the things that needs to not be on their minds as they're becoming, academics here, and furthermore becoming a major part of our economic development in the area. And we need every bit of space we can get. I sincerely believe that as someone who has watched in and out students coming in, struggling to find housing. I think the housing crisis is well known enough. So from the student perspective, I'm firmly behind this.
Very good. Thank you.
Evening, Zachary Bale, 124 Connolly Street. Also wanted to say in support of this particular resolution, it's been a long time coming. West Lafayette obviously adopted the process to do the special exception last year, and so it's about a year in the making. And we've seen my neighborhood in New Chauncey have considerable growth since that time and prior to that of these transient guest houses. They are a negative contributor in the neighborhood, so I have no doubt that other municipalities will be interested in having these restrictions. As you heard, they're open in other areas, so any of the current owners of these types of commercial businesses that want to do that, they can easily do it in other zones, just in the single-family zones, whether those are available for individuals, families, students. We need to make sure that that's available here in Tippecanoe County. Thank you very much. Appreciate your approval to be sent to the West Lafayette City Council.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to this? Hearing none. Questions or comments from the commission? Vicki?
Are we only discussing A or A, B, and C?
I would say that we'll discuss them all. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So obviously, West Lafayette passed a resolution for us to adopt this, and got it on the agenda, got it advertised, and, we'll vote on that tonight. The other part was thinking that other jurisdictions have expressed some interest, maybe not there yet, but in the final, we thought that we would go ahead and pass it, all jurisdictions, and then they can have the option to adopt it or not. So they can have their own hearing. We're not making them decide ahead of time. And it's kind of like the original transient guest house. We passed it for all the jurisdictions. West Lafayette discussed it, chose not to pass it at the time, but it was there for them to pass anytime they wanted. So they basically pulled it off the shelf, voted on it. It was adopted by them. So we wouldn't have to go through this procedure again. So Lafayette, Tippecanoe County, the towns have the option to adopt it if they want it. And that's the reason I think C includes them all, because I think Lafayette was the only one that expressed it. Go ahead, Kathy, you have something?
Yeah, so Amendment 112C would take care of all jurisdictions except West Lafayette. So you'd need to pass 112A and also 112C.
C, okay.
Yeah.
So you got B or C here. Okay, very good, thank you.
I had a question about the packet. There's 36 houses listed in here. Are these currently in the R1 zone? These are transient houses? Can you just tell me a little bit more? Are these all the houses? These clearly aren't all the transient houses in Tippecanoe County.
No, I don't think we didn't put the zones in there, but I think the majority are single family. There might be a couple of A zones, agricultural.
That's something I wanted to correct my original statement about how many zones. There's actually 17 zones. I forgot the rural zones. So the A, the AW, the AA, and the RE all permit, by special exception, transient guest houses, and that would continue. So we're essentially reducing from 17 zones to 13. So.
And these houses are just in any zone in Tippecanoe County?
They potentially could be, the ones in the chart. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what this is a list of.
Yeah, it's a list of all BZA special exceptions for short-term rentals.
Yeah, community-wide. Yeah, not limited to one jurisdiction.
And they would be grandfathered in. Correct. Yes.
Yes. Yes, all existing approvals would continue per the terms of that approval.
Okay.
And so just to clarify again, if we go with A and C, then in C, it goes back to the specific, and then, so those properties that are zoned R1, A, and all that are still compliant until those cities or townships come forward and make a different decision. Is that correct, or no?
They would become non-compliant, but they would be grandfathered as long as they never cease their use for longer than a year. They burned and more than 50... No, right. If more than 50% is damaged, then you could not. I don't know. I'd have to address that one. If you got rebuilt within a year, I don't know. What I said, more than 50% is damaged.
Yeah.
You cannot. Yeah, it's a standard
That's a state
grandfather
code
clause. Yep.
nuance.
They could rebuild their single-family home And if they wanted a transient guest rental, they could rezone to R2, or try to.
Right.
Yeah, well, I'll put my banker hat on now.
Okay.
So that doesn't work. I mean, I understand what we're trying to accomplish. I'm just saying,
Expand your banker hat. So you're saying if you loan an Airbnb,
we're treating it like a rental, right?
Right.
That's the income coming and going. Something burns down more than 50%, yes, they can put the single family back, but now it's non-compliant, and they cannot treat that as a, I'm going to use the term rental for lack of better terms, because it lost its designation.
they can't, as a
And what we all know, I mean, it has happened, spot zoning, but the chances of somebody coming forward and rezoning a single family to an R2, depending on the neighborhood's probably not going to happen. And it wouldn't make sense 90% of the time.
I have a question for you. So are you saying, as a banker, you would provide a different type of loan to a rental than a single-family homeowner?
Sure.
Is that what you're saying?
Right.
So it's more of an investment property perspective? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Can I just get some further clarification on what B is?
That's just Lafayette.
Oh, B is just Lafayette.
Just Lafayette.
Okay,
So you
okay,
can pull it past C, and it takes in Lafayette.
okay.
Any other questions or comments? That being said, I would recommend,
You got something?
Well, I was just going to add, you'll have to check on the ballot whether you're selecting B or C.
right, I would recommend that we do C and cross out B, and that still gives the right to the jurisdictions and whether they pass it or not.
Yeah, but again, to clarify, then this property has been found non-conforming.
Yes, yep.
So which
But
ballot you vote
not
on?
with
A
tonight's
first
action.
or all?
I think we can vote on them both. We
Yeah.
heard them together.
So if everybody would take the ballot that says B and C and just cross out B, so that it says only C, you'll be voting on the A ballot and the C ballot simultaneously.
Okay, there's West Lafayette. And there's the other one.
Is that going to be on the agenda next month?
I hope so.
That's my point. Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think it will be, so. So here, I had to do a ballot here. So we've approved 6, 1, 2, 3, unless I'm mistake, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. I turned down 4. 6 approved. I'm
Yeah,
throwing out
that's
those
probably
first
right.
ones because there really wasn't any opposition until, I think the board started to see.
Well, the special exception came around, too.
Well, these all receive special exceptions.
Okay,
Trying to.
Okay.
These are all special exceptions, so.
We separated them for you.
We mixed them up.
Okay, we're past there, rezoning, landmark.
Okay. We have a unanimous on both for approval.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan. I want to thank Kathy for her work on this. We went back and forth 2 or 3 or 4 times, but I think we got it right. And so I think we feel good. This goes to jurisdictions for their approval. Thank you. Now we're ready for landmark properties.
I move to hear and vote on Z 2920 Landmark Properties Incorporated, the standard at West Lafayette, PD, R3W to PDRS.
A second.
Okay. Well, it's been a couple years or so, it's been a few years since we've had a high-rise proposal in the area that was targeting for them from the West Lafayette Downtown Plan. This is one of those areas. The proposal here on Wood Street is directly east of the Campus Edge project, which that is a 10 and 9-story structure. And then, of course, it's just south of the Chauncey Hill Mall. And then there's a surface parking lot directly to the east of this project. So the proposal is 254 apartment unit, 680 bedrooms. It's totals in 13 stories, which is getting within a nice wiggle room of the FAA ceiling. So the Rise project is 16 stories, but it's also a little bit lower down the hill. So the further down the hill you go, the taller the buildings could get. So this building is further up, and so the floor count obviously has to come down. So this is the current existing conditions. We kind of have 3 low-rise structures kind of clustered together, been there for many decades, and we're looking at unit replacement here. There is no subterranean parking or basement of any kind with this project, so the proposed 212-space garage is all internal, built into the superstructure. Access is going to be off the existing north-south alley. Let's see if no laser pointer, okay. So it's off of Wood Street, and then going to a portion about a quarter of the way into the site, into the main garage entry point. The existing east-west alley that currently bisects the block, there's going to be an area for kind of loading and trash that will be serviced there. They are dedicating 2.5 feet of right-of-way for the continued expansion of that alley. We ultimately would like to see, similar to what we have between the Rise Hub and the Verve project, is a 20-foot section is what kind of West Side Fire felt comfortable with in terms of access, and still be a public alley, but just have a little bit more elbow room. So the remainder of the north-south alley past the garage entry point is actually planned to be pedestrianized. We've developed kind of a scheme, I guess, to kind of extend the old Gumball Alley vibe, I guess, south of State Street, and we thought that this installment here, and honestly the alleys roughly line up with each other. We're not trying to do a straight shot, but we felt that this was an opportunity to do something. Presently, this north-south alley is not really utilized either by the Campus Eds project or this potential project, except for the driveway entrance they need. So there will be kind of bollards where the vehicular portion terminates, and then that could be pedestrianized. The developer along their west wall at ground level is going to design it so that it can be painted, so we can kind of extend the painted mural kind of aesthetic that we have on what was affectionately known as Gumball Alley. I know it has a new name, but and then there's also an agreement with the owners of Campus Edge to string the pedestrian party lights over the space as well to try to liven it up. So, and ultimate goal is when the properties to the north of there come in for redevelopment, we'll have an opportunity to essentially make the connection to State Street. So anyway, that's the ground floor. The ground floor, this is not a mixed-use building. It is residential only. And so we are putting in some ground floor level townhouse type units, which Campus Edge has next door. And we've had some success with these in terms of livening up the streetscape. And so we will have walkout units on Wood Street. Their lobby is going to be centered in the southwest corner, adjacent to the alley here. And we did a lot of thoughtful review of the architecture and the design. Obviously, this is a project that's kind of sandwiched in lots of spaces, and so as things build up around it, it may slowly start getting obscured. But so we paid a lot more attention, obviously, to its Wood Street frontage, because that will never be obscured. And so they have their amenity space coming off the 13th floor. The 13th floor is only kind of partially finished out, since there's going to be an outdoor roof section. So in terms of meeting the comprehensive plan, it does per Block 23 of the West Lafayette Downtown Plan. And we feel that with the added enhancements to the streetscape and the public alley, that this is a project that we can get behind, certainly to contribute to the city, but also to assist with the student housing issue. This obviously will be a mighty contribution. So we are recommending approval. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner or representative, Ryan.
Ryan Munden with RTS Law here on behalf of the petitioner, and thank you to APC staff and West Lafayette staff for all the hard work they've put in to this project. We have been meeting with West Lafayette staff for over 2 years. We're excited to bring you what we believe will be a great addition to West Lafayette. First and foremost, APC received a number of letters from concerned parents and students who live in the existing buildings. The notices that they received were pursuant to West Lafayette's new ordinance that requires the tenants to receive an interested party notice, as well as advise them of what their lease says regarding redevelopment. The leases say that they may be terminated on or before December of -- we apologize for any alarm that these notices may have caused. We will not terminate any leases in December. And to be clear, we do not want students to be displaced in the middle of the school year. We will allow the students to stay through the spring of '25 semester, obviously assuming they're in compliance with their lease. And any residents whose lease extends beyond the end of the spring of '25 semester will receive some assistance in finding alternative accommodations. So again, we apologize for any alarm that caused. This is the first project that has triggered this new requirement. It's been in place for a while, but this was the first project that triggered it. So, so with that being said, with respect to the project itself, as always, thanks, Ryan, for your thorough introduction. Some additional things to note. There are 120 existing beds, so the 680 new beds will add 560 new beds to West Lafayette. The project will include over 6,700 square feet of dedicated study space. This is more than double the study space provided on a per-bed basis than any other project in West Lafayette. The project includes a pool and fitness center on the 13th floor, in addition to a courtyard amenity deck on the 4th floor. And one of my favorite features of the project is the pedestrian alley that Ryan described, and that, along with the walkout units on Wood, really improve the streetscape environment and will tie the newer projects to the east and the west into more of a cohesive landscape. We presented this project on April 16th to the Purdue-West Lafayette Joint Board and received only positive feedback at that meeting. And again, this is another exciting project for one of West Lafayette's prominent locations. We concur with staff's report and recommendation. We have representatives from the petitioner here, as well as representatives from VS Engineering. We would be happy to answer any questions you have. We'd respectfully request your recommendation of approval. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak against it? Please come forward.
Hi, good evening. Amy Owen, 3012 South State Road 39 in Danville, Indiana. My daughter's one of the residents at 222 Westwood, and I'm probably somewhere in between the for and against, but certainly wanted to raise the piece around the possible displacement that's listed as December 31, 2024, kind of on or after, and would just ask that, based on what was just shared, that that also be stipulated in whatever voting that you do to ensure that that's in place for students that are in those apartments to kind of protect them through the end of May and through that time period for that school year. So I certainly appreciate that consideration and would ask for that. It's certainly a struggle, and I think I've learned as a parent of a student here on campus, it's very difficult. Coming in as a freshman parent, you find out very quickly that you've got about 4 weeks to figure out where they're going to live the next year, and you don't know that's coming. And so we've been through that experience her freshman year, her sophomore year, and we're preparing to do it again for senior year as soon as she gets back in the fall. But definitely appreciate the opportunity to at least stay through the school year and not have that disruption during that study time.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Skylar Croonan, I live at 215 Littleton. I don't know, I oppose this. I really do not think that Purdue needs any more like high-rise $1,800 a month apartments. I think it's like I care about the students that like come after me and like whoever's living in those apartments, and it's like you talk about the housing crisis, but you're building more like unaffordable like housing. I don't think it's necessary. I don't know. I also want like in writing that we're allowed to stay like through the end of the school year. I'm going to be a senior. I don't want to live with random people. I don't want to have to struggle to find somewhere to live. It's just disappointing, but thank you for hearing everyone out.
Very good, thank you. Next, please.
I'm Ava Reynolds. I live at 3822 Campus Suites Drive. I think first and foremost we need to consider the fact that this housing there's been no discussion of its affordability. I understand the importance of trying to find more beds and fix the housing crisis. However, I don't think adding more high-rises and fixing the landscaping of West Lafayette is going to fix the housing crisis, because when you add apartment buildings with rent that costs double what rent is at 222 Wood Street, it's absolutely asinine to expect full-time students that also work jobs to be able to afford that. Because when you look at the demographic of who is renting at places like 222 Wood Street and more of the affordable campus housing, it's going to be your middle-class students that are living off of their loans and they are paying their own rent. And I think it's very important to protect future students and ensure that they have housing, because this further just discourages students from being able to pursue their academics for fear of losing their housing. But I appreciate you hearing everybody out. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Isabella Arias. I live at 222 West Wood Street currently. And I would like to say that I oppose this largely for the reason that there are very few properties on campus that are affordable as of right now, especially that are close to campus. Many students have to resort to living very, very far off campus in order to simply have $500 rent a month. And even then, they can barely afford it, plus the cost of transportation of any kinds. And given the fact that public transportation is now rising in costs, and some students have to even pay for it to get even just 10 minutes from their house to campus, is a huge problem. I also want to say that prioritizing the look of the landscape when students literally don't have anywhere to live sometimes and can't afford anywhere to live, I think is frankly demeaning to a lot of the people at Purdue. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Next, please.
Good evening. My name is Andy Bellish. I'm from Fishers, Indiana. My son is a student at Purdue, and he'll be leasing an apartment on the property starting in July of this year. I won't repeat everything that's already been said. I would just like to echo it, saying that I appreciate that to learn that we won't be evicted in December and we'll be able to stay. I just hope that somewhere in the agreement between the county and the city and the developers that's in writing, because people change, things change. And I would hate to come back here, several months from now and find out that things have changed significantly. The housing market's tight. You all know that. You have to sign a lease a year in advance. And the odds of finding a decent place to live in December are probably near zero. And if we did have to do that, you could find some people could find themselves homeless, essentially. And so I just ask that we really try to avoid that. It sounds like we're doing that, and I appreciate it, and I hope we can codify it in writing somehow. So thank you much.
Very good, thank you.
Hello, my name is Brantley McCord. I live at 221 West Wood Street. I'd like to try to provide a benchmark for affordability, as was raised as a concern from several prior speakers here. So I live just across the street from these buildings currently. My current rent is $825 a month, and this upcoming fall will be increasing to $900 a month. Currently, I work at the Tippecanoe County Public Library. I started there last year and started at and continue to work at $14 an hour. That is higher than what, say, Purdue dining staff will start at, from what I understand. Even so, I'm only breaking even, and upcoming with my rent increase, I will likely start draining funds until I can no longer continue at Purdue. Additionally, I do not take a full course load every semester either, which means I'm a cheaper student than most. I hope that this information helps to gauge what an affordable living situation will be for upcoming tenants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bambi Dean. I live at 2400 Beck Lane, Lafayette, Indiana, across from Miami Elementary. I am a prior student of Purdue University and a current member of the newly formed Greater Lafayette Area Tenant Union. Housing prices are a huge issue. I want to also reiterate the cost. I'm interested, I have questions later about the cost per unit per person. 2-bedroom homes right now are going around $1,400. And there's a lot of shady practices in terms of returning security deposits and coming up with new titles for security deposits that make them not refundable and usable for other purposes. So I just wanted to make sure that I supported my fellow students. It was very struggle for me to find housing as a married student when I first got here at Purdue, and the situation has not gotten any better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Tyler Merrill. I live at 210 West Wood Street. I'd just like to echo that I understand the housing prices and everything like that, but for people who live there right now, I'd really like to see it in writing that we won't be evicted in December of this year. We signed our lease all the way back in October of last year, so it's really hard to tell that this kind of thing is going to happen, and we weren't aware of things like this being in the talks for multiple years, maybe before I even came to university here. So I'd really like to see it in writing that we won't get kicked out of our apartment come December.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against this? Please come forward if you wish to speak against this petition.
My name is Cheryl Kirkpatrick. I live at 801 Carrollton Boulevard, West Lafayette, Indiana, 47906. I had no idea that this was going to be discussed tonight. I always seem to be a step behind. But you know, this is one of my favorite subjects. Purdue, too many students, and not enough housing. And I find it outrageous that Purdue or whomever would agree that these kids could pay $1,800 a month rent. I couldn't afford to live there, and I have some money. But I couldn't afford to live there. So I think it would behoove Purdue to make a deal with the people. If they have to have $1,800 a month, the kids can pay $1,000, and Purdue can pay $800. And you laugh at me? I'm an alum. My father was an alum, my sister, my 2 uncles, and hardly a day goes by that Purdue doesn't send me something on my iPad saying, could you give us money? They want money all the time. And what do they want it for? They want to put somebody's name on something. They want to have Purdue like a brand name, like Hershey or Pepsi. They don't really care about the average kid that's coming to school here. You think they do? And I don't know how they think they're going to get those kids to give any money back. I support my father's memorial fund for a graduate student in his department, which there never was at all. And I have endowed the award, and I will continue to endow the award. I will not give a penny to Purdue for anything else until they stop their outrageous spending and do something for the kids. And why can't you cut the population back? Who needs 52,000 students here and they're saying we're going to have more? What is wrong with these people? Do they just crazy? I think so. What's wrong with 40,000?
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against this? Last call for opposition. Ryan, rebuttal.
With respect to the termination of the leases, to be fair, we've not said we're going to terminate in December. As we've said this evening, there's no intention to terminate in December. There's no intention to terminate mid-semester. We will terminate at the end of the spring of 25 school year. With respect to affordability, we've had this discussion before. I've told you guys before that it's an issue of supply and demand. And until we've addressed the supply issue, we're not going to address the affordability issue. In fact, there was an article that was attached to one of the letters that was sent in opposition from 22, and it included some quotes from former Councilman Ted Hardesty, and I'll just quote from what he had to say because I couldn't say it better myself. "The market will end up deciding the prices," Hardesty said, "but the biggest way that I believe we can help with affordability is to continue to try to fast-track more housing projects on campus when developers are willing to put down more housing. The truth of the matter is we're just short. There's no question we lack housing. So until we've addressed the supply, we're not going to address affordability." So, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Questions or comments from the commission?
Can they get that in writing, that you will not terminate any until May of 2024, or 25?
Yeah, we'd be happy to provide that in writing. I'm not entirely sure what the proper procedure for that would be. We can submit that to area plan, whatever.
That could be tacked on as a condition of approval of the rezone, if you accept.
Do we need to do an amendment, a contingency amendment?
Is that acceptable?
Well, that's acceptable.
Okay.
Okay.
So we would add that as a condition?
Yeah.
To the vote. Okay.
So if someone would make a motion to make that as a condition.
I make that motion that a contingent amendment, current leases would be honored through the Purdue 2025 spring semester.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ryan, is that what you guys were thinking, through the spring of the 2025?
Correct.
So it's agreeable. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any?
Yeah. Can you?
The end of the spring semester is.
In,
The last graduation ceremony is May 18th, so I would respectfully request that kids aren't pushed out of their housing prior to that.
Yeah, May 18th.
End of May is fine.
Okay. So, okay.
Through May of 2025.
Perfect. So I have a motion and a second on that. Any other questions or comments from the commission? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that motion carries, and that's a condition as rezoned. Now, back. Any other questions or comments on the rezone itself? Hearing none, we have a yellow ballot.
We have a unanimous ballot for approval with the amended conditions.
Thank you, Ryan. So that case will be sent to the West Lafayette City Council to be heard at their July 1st meeting with a positive recommendation. Next case, Larry, please.
I move to hear and vote on Z2929 Racetrack Petroleum Incorporated, AW to I-3 with commitment.
I second.
Okay. Petitioner's property is located here at the corner of Barton Beach Road and State Road 25, or Schuyler Avenue. It is zoned AW currently. You can see it's completely surrounded by floodplain. This property was elevated by fill dirt added to bring it out of the floodplain. Here's a look at the aerial photograph. And a closer look at the property. I think it's currently used for parking semi-trucks. I think there's a small office trailer there on the site. Okay, so this case was heard last month by the APC, and I think you all requested a continuance for the petitioner so that they could add commitments to the case. Here are the commitments that they have included. The first one has to do with lighting. Unfortunately, that's not something that our bylaws allow to be put into a commitment, so that's why it's been struck. But the other commitments all have to do with adding additional buffer yards, landscaping, and a fence. Here's a look at the site plan. And I'm sorry I don't have a laser pointer, but the 2 rows of evergreens, that's an addition. There's a single row of evergreens next to the parking lot, and there's a privacy fence north of that single row of evergreens. You probably can't see it real well on this, but it's there. So petitioner is planning a gas station for cars in the front and then a truck stop in the back. Gas station is permitted by right in GB, but a truck stop is not. That's why they're requesting the I-3 zoning. I believe at the last month's meeting there was a question about road improvements to Barton Beach Road. So this is part of a drawing from the County Highway Department that's showing what road improvements would be required by petitioner. So, staff appreciates petitioner's commitments of buffer yards and fencing. However, we still remain concerned about the intensity of this use, particularly in this environmentally sensitive area with Wildcat Creek right there. We can see that someday this will be developed. It's got sewer and water. We just feel that the heaviest intensity zone, I-3, is too much for this site, and we are recommending denial.
Thank you. Petitioner or the representative?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Russell Brown. I'm an attorney with the Clark Quinn Law Firm, 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100 in Indianapolis. Staff did a good job of covering kind of what has changed since the last time this petition was before you. I'll point out the logic that we utilized. One thing that staff did not include is that there is also a commitment that the buffer yard, there will be a 30 buffer yard on the northern boundary, which is currently covered by deciduous trees. So that is an additional commitment that we've included, that would be maintained along the northern borderline of 30 feet. I'll tell you the logic that we utilized when coming up with what the buffering looked like. your heaviest buffer yard is a 30-foot buffer yard with a double staggered row of evergreens planted 10 feet on center. So we left a 30-foot buffer yard for an existing tree stand. We then added your heaviest buffering requirements immediately adjacent to that. You then have detention facility that is located there. We confirmed through preliminary calculations that what is shown here would be adequate to meet the needs of your drainage ordinance. And then we added a 6-foot fence. And then we added additional evergreens, those 8-foot tall, 10-foot on center, immediately adjacent to the parking area. So we have worked, we believe, diligently to try to provide the highest level of screening that your ordinance provides or requires in any district, and committed to doing that plus at this location. We think that does provide significant screening to those residential uses to the north. I'll add a couple other additional comments. Obviously, the roadway design comments coming from the County Highway Department gives some clarification to some questions that I believe one of your members who isn't here tonight was asking last month, that those improvements will be required all the way to the northern entry. So that runs all the way to the furthest entry where truck traffic may exist. And then there was a question asked last month in comparison to how close this property is to Wildcat Creek versus the Loves. I use GIS, and I will admit that GIS, has a give or take, but the northern edge of the Loves pavement on the north end of their development is about 105 feet from what appears to be Creek's edge. The closest here is the property line itself, and the closest area is about 189 feet, give or take again to edge. The auto canopy at the Loves is about 155 feet to the water's edge. So we are in excess to the property line. The store at Loves is about 220 feet from property from store corner to Wildcat Creek. So we believe we're in excess of that, given that the property line is about between 180 and 190 feet to Wildcat Creek. So we are set back further than that existing development. I will fall on the sword about the pole lights. I read your bylaws to say that you can make a commitment as it relates to glare. I interpreted that I could make a commitment related to dark sky lighting that has glare. Staff disagreed with me, but I will tell you that was the logic behind making the commitment to dark sky lighting, which you have in some of your specialty kind of overlay districts, a requirement for dark sky lighting, but not in your general industrial districts. So that's why we offered it. I apologize that it's not proper under your bylaws, but that was the logic behind doing so. So with that, Zach Sen and I are from Racetrack are here to answer questions, but otherwise would appreciate your favorable recommendation of the petition with the commitments offered.
Very good, thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone opposed wish to speak?
Lisa Banter, 2834 Barton Beach Road. I am literally, again, a stone's throw away from the exit of this truck stop. I don't see how the buffer is going to keep the noise and the litter from my yard, my house. The reconstruction of the road, is that going to come from their property, or is it going to come from the creek side? During the summer, we do have 2 kids down along the north side that like to ride their bike up and down the road. Granted, I'm not their parent, so it's not my parental concern, but are they going to have sidewalks so, they can ride their bike, not be stuck in their yard all day, so others can walk our dogs? It's mainly my concern. I oppose it. I think it's a bad idea. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against this petition?
Evening. Steve Mayors, 1105 Chenoweth Lane. Just want to speak in respect to the staff recommendations for denial, I would say that that's probably the better decision here. You look at the southmost exit, you've got, what, one gas station, 26 exit, 4, the 25 exit, 2, that's this exit if I'm recalling correctly, and then the one north of that, another 1. And maybe in part to the petitioner as well, is this the best we can envision for this space? Rightfully so. The commission spoke last time. It's going to be developed. It's next to a major highway. But once it's a gas station forever. And so we are not short on gas stations. We've got a shortage of space in the county. And I would respectfully request that this commission advise in a way that can be for future better development and use this space in a more productive way than what is being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against this? Hearing none. Questions or comments from the commission? Oh, you're right. Rebuttal. The petitioner, thank you.
I'll be very brief. I think one of the things that the goal of the fence along the property line was to try to contain that there is no blowing trash, that there is, that is contained on site. So that was, I believe, if I recall correctly, that was a suggestion from staff that we incorporated into our recommendation as well, was to include a fence there. So that was an attempt to address some of the concerns raised in addition to the buffering requirements. So that was my only comment, but otherwise appreciate your consideration.
Very good, thank you. Now questions or comments from the board. Tom.
So, I'm sorry, I just need a little bit more clarification on the location of the fence. So is it to the, at the top of this map, is it at the far property line?
The intent is you start in the parking lot, so you go parking lot, pine, evergreens, fence, detention facility, double row of staggered evergreens, tree preservation. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, okay. I see it. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we have a yellow ballot. Commitment first. Thank you very much. Okay, so we do have a ballot. Thank you for that. Ballot on the commitment first. I think we've found you.
Is it list?
Yeah, it's.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you for whoever said that, Kathy.
We have 2 ballots recommending against the commitment, and we have 12 ballots recommending in favor.
Okay, so approval on the commitment. Now we will vote on the rezone.
We have 9 ballots recommending approval, and we have 5 recommending against.
Okay, so I believe that's a positive recommendation. So
Correct.
that'll be sent to the county commissioners' July 1st meeting for final consideration with a positive recommendation. Next case, Larry, please.
The next case
yeah.
is not ready to be heard. The
Okay.
paperwork has not been checked in, so I recommend you continue to July.
Well, is anyone here for
Oh, yeah,
BET?
last chance.
Any petitioner, attorney? Okay.
Apparently not.
So I take a motion to continue that to the next month.
So moved.
So I have a motion and a second to continue that case next month. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Now, we're on to administrative matters. Oh, is that us? APC Executive Director appointment. Maybe I'll let Tracy handle that. We did have interviews, and Tracy headed that up, if he wants to tell us how we got to where we're at.
Well, as most of you know, David Hiddle notified us on March 1st that he had taken employment in Bloomington, Indiana, so that triggered, our response was to post the position as we have in the past. That include postings with ZipRecruiter, our county website, and also the American Planning Association and the Indiana chapter of the American Planning Association. We did collect a lot of resumes and applications as part of that process. Those were sent to our committee, the Budget Personnel Committee, screened. We scheduled interviews, and we landed on who I think is going to, who we collectively think is going to take us to the next level in the Area Plan Commission. And fortunately for us, Ryan was gracious enough to accept the position. And so congratulations to you, and thank you to the members of the committee that worked on this. And we'll start the same process very soon to find a replacement for the newly vacated position. So
great. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Good, thank you. Now, to make that official, if somebody would make a motion to appoint Ryan as the Executive Director. So we have a motion and a second to appoint Ryan as Executive Director of the Area Plan Commission. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's official.
You are going to give an acceptance speech, right?
Yeah.
Happy to continue to serve this community in this new capacity. I'm really looking forward to the just change of pace and the increase in meetings. Yeah. So it'll be a delight to continue to serve you all. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan. Approval of the July Executive Committee agenda.
I move that the following request for subdivision be placed on the July 3rd Area Plan Commission Executive Committee agenda at petitioner's request, placement thereon being without reference to compliance or non-compliance with the adopted subdivision ordinance. S. 5199, Jackson Minor Subdivision, minor sketch.
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Determination of variances.
I move that the following requests for variance from the Unified Zoning Ordinance are not requests for use variance prohibited under consideration by ordinance and statute. BZA 2159, RJG Investments, LLC. BZA 2160, Brent Jackson. And BZA 2162, Grayson G. Mitchell, Woodrow.
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Director's report.
Sent it out this morning. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments for Ryan? Citizens' comments or grievances? Hearing none. Oh, Steve's coming up.
Steve's grieving.
I'm just kidding.
Steve Clevenger, 4011 Foxworth Lane, West Lafayette. I just wanted to bring up the condition, or the commitment. What? It went on.
There it is.
There it is? Okay. It was red when I hit it, but it must have gone off again. But I just wanted to bring up the commitments for zoning. It was 12-2, and it probably should have been 14-0. That, unless you disagree with that, with those commitments. The commitments go with the rezone. So even if you want to deny the rezone, you still ought to approve the commitments so that they go along to the legislative body. That way, the legislative body has those commitments. If, let's say it had been 5-9 against it, the commitments, and then 9-5, for the rezoning, or 5-9 even against the rezoning, it would have gone to the county commissioners without the commitment. So the commitments add the restrictions to the zoning. So you don't, if you're going to vote against the project, doesn't mean that you vote against the commitment, unless you disagree with the commitment to begin with. And Gary or Eric can add to it, but that's all I had to say.
No, I'd say well said, Steve. That's kind of a reminder. We did kind of mess up once before where we turned down the commitment and it still went on without a commitment. So I agree with your comments.
Actually, you approved it, it was added to it, but you didn't have a separate vote. So it ended up okay since you approved it with the commitment.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Any other citizens' comments or grievances? Hearing none, I think I'll take that final motion.
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
All right.
Oh, the gavel.
Good ad. Good ad. What'd they used to say to you? Chief, you're out of order. Chief, you're out of order.
I never went over there as a chief.
You probably not. Exactly. I'm sure you did his patrol.
That was interesting.
My favorite story is Judge Mahana, who you wouldn't know, but he was a